Let's start off in the AFC East. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. Their win total is set at 10.5. They're plus 160 to win the AFC East, plus 1600 to win the Super Bowl, all courtesy of Bally Bet. This is a team that hasn't been able to get past the Chiefs in the playoffs and entered the season with a very different looking receiving core than they've had for a while with Josh Allen. Are the Bills still a Super Bowl contender, or is their window slightly closed in Buffalo?
Yeah, I think it might be closed, but not because of the losses of Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. I just think that overall, it's like they've had so many chances with Sean McDermott, this Josh Allen, that partnership, and they just keep falling short to teams like the Chiefs last three or four playoffs, and then the Bengals in there in that game in the snow. I just have a lot of questions about their defense. They lost a lot of players, they had a lot of players injured last year. Already have an injury with Matt Milano going into this season, and although Josh Allen does give the Bills a high floor, and no matter who his receivers are, I think the Bills are still able to win a lot of games. I'm just not sure if they're going to be able to get past some of the better all around teams in the AFC. They also have a pretty tough schedule this year. Their extra games, which are games that their other teams in the AFC East don't have to play, are against the Chiefs, Ravens, and Lions. So those crossover games in terms of within the AFC, and then the cross conference game is against the Lions. So really tough schedule for Buffalo this year. I still expect them to compete for a playoff spot, but they're just not a Super Bowl a team in my opinion. I'd pass on Buffalo personally in terms of winning the Super Bowl. I think that their best chances have gone past them.
Sure, let's move a little bit south and talk about the New York Jets. Their win total is set at 9.5. They're plus 175 to win the AFC East, plus 2,000 to win the Super Bowl, all courtesy of Bally Bet. The Jets have high expectations this year with Aaron Rodgers returning from his darkness retreat, his trip to Greece, his whatever he wants to. Oh, and also his torn Achilles. Are you bullish on the Jets this year?
Yeah, I know Rodgers has been the headlines for a lot of reasons for the Jets. Even flirted with the potential vice president candidacy for a third party. But let's focus on the football, where we only saw Aaron Rodgers play 4 snaps last year, but he's back from the injury, the Achilles injury that had took him out in Week 1. And I really like this Jets team. Last year they won 7 games with really poor quarterback play, whether it was Zach Wilson. Tim Boyle got some time. I believe Trevor Siemian even got the nod in a few starts before they eventually went back to Wilson and realized that the former second overall pick was not going to be part of their plan. So Rodgers is back. There's a lot of talent on the defense. We saw it last year. That's how they got to 7 games. And they went all in this offseason in terms of shoring up the offensive line, making sure Aaron Rodgers were protected. And one thing I'm thinking about, or I actually did bet on the Jets over 9.5 wins over the weekend. I was kind of debating if I should wait to bet the over on them because they are playing at the 49ers in Week 1, and that's the toughest game on their schedule, a road game on a Monday night in San Francisco, which is always a tough place to play when the 49ers are rolling. But if you look at weeks 2 through 5 for the Jets, Titans, Pats, Broncos, and Vikings. So I do have a if they can, even if they can beat the 49ers, that'd be huge in terms of the win total. But even if they don't beat the 49ers, I still like them to start the season 3-2, 4-1, kind of get some momentum. And I think this team can be an absolute beast in the regular season, win a ton of regular season games, have a chance of competing in the conference once we get to the playoffs.
Let's take it down to Miami, where they're another interesting team this season. Their win total is set at 9.5. They're plus 210 to win the AFC East, plus 2,500 to win the Super Bowl. Again, all courtesy of Bally Bet. Dolphins' offense has been one of the best in the league the last 2 seasons, but late season injuries have led to back-to-back wild card exits. They just gave Tua a huge contract. Is this the year the Dolphins can get a playoff win under Mike McDaniel?
Yeah, so I think two in their offense is going to hold up their part. I mean, two great wide receivers. They have really electric running backs. They have a head coach in Mike
Yep.
McDaniel who is a great play caller. He designed all the run game concepts for the 49ers back before he became the head coach of the Dolphins. So if you think of Kyle Shanahan, you think of really fun running formations and a lot of success in that part of the offense. And their running game is solid. But defensively, there's just some injuries from last year. The pass rushers, Chubb and Phillips, They also let Vic Fangio walk, who's a defensive coordinator that I respect a lot. I guess it didn't really work out there with maybe some of the personalities on that defense, but I do think that is a big loss. Even though the Dolphins defense are saying that they're they're more enjoyable in this scheme that their new defensive coordinator has. The thing with the Dolphins and kind of my approach with how I would bet on them, they start off the season, with a pretty soft schedule. They're a favorite, a 3.5 point favorite week one against the Jaguars at home. We saw it last year where they started off really hot, were one of the best teams in the AFC, and then they faded down the stretch. And if you kind of look at their end of the season this year, starting on Thanksgiving night, they play at the Packers, they play the Jets, at Texans, host the 49ers, at Browns, and at Jets. If you look a little bit closer, that Thanksgiving game against the Packers is at night at Lambeau Field. We know the Dolphins don't play well in cold weather historically, and this group hasn't played that great in the last two seasons. So that's a really tough game in cold weather at Lambeau Field in late November. They also play the Browns in Week 17 in Cleveland, and that's scheduled for a night game. And that game against the Jets to end the year, I assume that's going to be also cold because it's the first week of January. So a lot of games and a lot of tough spots, even with the home games mixed in against the 49ers and the Jets, and then a trip to Houston, all mixed in. So my approach to bet this team, buy them early. It's kind of worked the last few years where you could buy on them early. They're covering spread, they're scoring a lot of points, and then sell them late, just like the last two seasons when injuries have picked up. But I think the specific schedule and having to play those 6 games, 3 on the road in cold weather, could be a lot of trouble for Miami. And we'll see. Maybe they're fighting for a playoff spot week 18. That's kind of how I see the Dolphins, even though from the fantasy perspective, they're probably going to make a lot of their owners happy if you own Miami players because the offense will probably be pretty good in the first couple of months of the season.
For sure. A team that's kind of going to be just building for the future this season, the New England Patriots. Their win total is set at 4.5, not great. Plus 2,800 to win the AFC East and 225 to 1 odds to win the Super Bowl. Not looking great for them. The Patriots begin their life after Bill Belichick as they parted ways with him and promoted from within with Gerard Mayo. Are the Patriots set to be the worst team in the NFL?
Yeah, I believe they will be, and I believe the loss of Bill Belichick is going to be felt. I didn't really understand the hire if you're kind of parting ways with Bill Belichick, just promoting from within with Gerard
Mm-hmm.
Mayo. Doesn't
Yeah,
really make sense to me. I know there's some nice parts on this defense, although they just traded Matthew Judon to the Falcons last week. So it kind of shows the direction this team is going in, where they're looking ahead to the future. I think offensively, it's really a mess, and it's a tough situation for third overall pick rookie quarterback from North Carolina, Drake May. I think if May was on some other teams like the Vikings, who apparently were interested in him before the draft, he would do pretty well, especially as a rookie. But this team with this offensive line and just like no speed at all at their weapons at wide receiver, I think it's going to be a really poor season for the Patriots. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jacoby Brissett ended up starting the season just because the early season schedule is absolutely brutal for New England. You start off week one at the Bengals, then you host the Seahawks, which might be the most winnable game in the first, 8 weeks of the season. Then you play at the Jets in week three, at 49ers, a cross country travel. Then you host the Dolphins, you host the Texans, you go out to London to face the Jaguars. And the Jaguars are actually playing the week before in London against the Bears. So they'll be all rested and acclimated to being in London, and the Patriots then go out to London. And then they don't have a bye week until week 14. They're not taking their bye after London. They're playing the Jets after a bye. So there's not really a ton of obvious spots for May to maybe start because the schedule's so hard, or they might just start him right away because they just want to see what they have in the rookie and just kind of feed him to the wolves. So we'll see what happens in New England, but I don't think it's going to result in many wins. There's a reason why this win total has been bet down from 5.5 earlier in the summer to 4.5, and I would still consider playing it at 4.5 because I just don't see where the wins are coming from for New England this year. I think the Bill Belichick, absence and him going away from the organization is really going to be felt, and we're going to really appreciate him as one of the best coaches in NFL history. And it's going to be a really long season
yeah.
for New England, and it might be a long kind of next 3 to 5 years for them as they kind of rebuild and have a quite a bit of a project to undertake.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough one in Foxborough this year. All right, Nate, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who's going to win the AFC East?
Yeah, I know this is kind of crazy to say because it's a team that has not had much success. They've had a lot of bad luck, but I do like the New York Jets to win the AFC East
Oh,
this season.
okay.
As I mentioned, I like the offense around Aaron Rodgers. I like the offensive linemen that they got this season. The defense has been trending up for years under Robert Salah, and now they have
Yeah,
the quarterback and the offense that I believe can kind of take them to the next level. I like their schedule after week one. So this is another bet or another, pick if you are interested in dabbling in the markets where you could wait to week one after week one. If they lose that, maybe you get a better number on the New York Jets because after that it's a little bit of a soft landing for the
sure.
Jets, no pun intended. So that's kind of my thoughts on the Jets. You could decide how you want to do it. You could either go before week one, before that big game against the
Yeah,
49ers, or wait, if they win, tip your cap to them, or you wait and then they lose, and then you can get them at a good price to not just win the division, but I'd actually even look at them to win the AFC and the Super Bowl.